I've been hunting in the same forest for over 10 years, and I've never once felt like I was in danger out there. If anything, it was the one place I actually felt in control. You learn the land, you learn the patterns. Animals move a certain way, react a certain way. After a while, you stop thinking about it. It just becomes instinct. That's why what happened that weekend still doesn't make sense to me. Because whatever we ran into out there, it wasn't just another animal, and it definitely wasn't another hunter. At first, we thought it was just someone messing with us. But looking back now, that was probably the worst assumption we could have made. Because by the time we realized something was seriously wrong, it already knew exactly how we hunted. Story 1. My name's Daniel. I'm 32 now, and I've been hunting since I was a teenager. It started with my dad. Nothing serious at first, just small trips during the season. But over the years, it kind of became my way of disconnecting from everything else. No phone, no noise, no people. Just the woods. By the time I hit my 20s, I was going out regularly with 2 friends, Mark and Ethan. We'd been doing these trips together for years. Same routine, same area, same cabin. It was about a 3-hour drive from where we lived. The place wasn't anything fancy, just an old wooden cabin someone in Mark's family owned. No electricity, no running water, just enough to sleep and store gear. What made it perfect was how remote it was. Once you got there, there was no signal, not even a flicker. The nearest town was at least an hour away, and even then it was just a gas station and a couple of houses. Most people wouldn't want to be that far out. But for us, that was the point. We knew that forest better than anywhere else. Every trail, every clearing, every spot where deer liked to pass through. We'd spent years figuring it out, and because of that, we were comfortable. Probably too comfortable. Looking back, I think that's part of why we didn't take the first sign seriously. We thought we understood that place. We thought we knew how everything out there behaved. But whatever we came across that weekend didn't follow any of those rules. We got there late Friday afternoon, just before sunset. The drive-in was the same as always, a long stretch of dirt road that slowly got narrower the deeper you went. By the time we parked near the cabin, the trees were so thick on both sides, it almost felt like they were closing in. The air was colder than I expected for that time of year. Not freezing, just still. Quiet in a way that felt heavier than usual. I remember noticing that, but I didn't think much of it. The cabin sat in a small clearing, maybe 20 yards across. Beyond that, it was just dense forest in every direction. No clear lines of sight. Once you stepped past the edge of the clearing, your visibility dropped fast. Inside, nothing had changed. Same rough wooden walls, same old table, same bunks. We unloaded our gear, checked our rifles, and went over the plan for the next morning. We had a few spots we liked to rotate between trails we'd tracked over the years, where deer usually moved early in the day. The idea was simple. Split up cover more ground, then meet back at the cabin around noon. Standard stuff. As the sun went down, the forest got dark quick. Out there, there's no gradual fade like in the city. 1 minute you can see the next. You're relying on a flashlight. We kept things low-key that night. Ate, talked a bit, then turned in early. I woke up once sometime in the middle of the night. I don't know what time it was, My phone was off and I didn't feel like checking, but I remember just lying there, awake, listening. At first I thought it was just the usual forest noise. Wind, leaves, maybe something moving in the distance, but the more I listened, the less it sounded like that. It was quieter than it should have been, not silent, just missing something, like there should have been more noise and there wasn't. I almost got up to look outside, but I didn't. I just told myself I was overthinking it and went back to sleep. Looking back now, that was probably the first moment something felt off. We were up before sunrise. That's usually the best time to move early morning before anything's been disturbed. We grabbed our gear, went over the routes one more time, then split off like we always did. I took the northern trail. Mark went west. Ethan headed south. Nothing felt wrong at first. The forest looked the same as it always did. Same paths, same markers we'd left from previous trips. I moved slow, keeping an eye on the ground for tracks. About an hour in, I came across the first sign. It was a deer, or what was left of one. At first glance, I thought it had been taken down by a predator. That wasn't unusual out there, but the closer I got, the more something didn't add up. It hadn't been torn apart. There were no signs of struggle, no scattered tracks, no drag marks. The body was laid out almost neatly, and the cuts, they were clean. Not perfect, but controlled. Like someone had gone through the effort of opening it up carefully instead of ripping into it. I remember just standing there for a minute trying to make sense of it. It didn't look like any animal kill I'd ever seen, and it didn't look like a normal hunter's work either. Most people don't just leave a deer like that. I crouched down, checking the area around it. That's when I noticed something else. There were tracks nearby, but they didn't fully make sense. They looked human at first, but the spacing was off. The depth was inconsistent, like whoever or whatever made them didn't quite move the way a person should. I told myself it was probably just someone inexperienced, maybe another hunter messing up a clean shot and trying to process it badly. It was the only explanation that made sense at the time. Still, I didn't like it. I radioed Mark, and Ethan told them what I found. Mark just laughed it off, said it was probably some idiot from out of town. Ethan didn't say much, just told me to keep an eye out and head back if I saw anything else weird. I almost did, but I didn't. I stayed out there and kept hunting. That was the second mistake. I tried to shake it off after that. Like I said, you see weird things in the woods sometimes. People do stupid stuff. It didn't have to mean anything. So I kept moving. Another hour passed, maybe a little more. I didn't see any fresh tracks. No movement, nothing worth taking a shot at. It was starting to feel like one of those slow mornings. Then I found one of our traps. We'd set a few the day before. Nothing big, just small game setups along a narrow trail we knew animals used. From a distance, it looked fine. But when I got closer, I could tell something was wrong. It had been triggered, but not in the way it should have been. The mechanism was still intact. No damage. No sign that anything had been caught. It was like someone had set it off manually. I crouched down and looked around. No animal tracks. No signs of struggle. Just the trap. Sitting there, empty. I checked the ground around it, and that's when I saw the prints again. Same as before. Almost human, but not quite. The stride was uneven. Too long in some places, too short in others. And the direction didn't make sense, like it had circled the trap more than once before leaving. That's when I felt it. That shift. The kind where your brain stops trying to explain things and just tells you something's wrong. I stood up and scanned the trees around me. Nothing moved. No sound. Just that same off kind of quiet. I radioed Mark again. No response. Tried Ethan. Still nothing. At that point, I figured they were just out of range. It happened sometimes, depending on where you were. Still, I didn't like it. I decided to head back toward the cabin. As I started moving, I kept checking behind me more than I normally would. That feeling, like you're being watched. I've had it before in the woods. Everyone has. But this felt different, more focused. Like whatever it was, knew exactly where I was. About 15 minutes into the walk back, I heard something. A short sound. Sharp. A whistle. I froze. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. And the worst part was, I recognized it. It sounded exactly like the signal Mark used when he wanted to get your attention without shouting. 2 short notes, quick and quiet. I turned in the direction it came from. "Mark," I called out. No answer. Just silence. I waited a few seconds listening. Then I heard it again. Same whistle, same pattern. But this time, it was further away, like whatever made it had moved. That didn't make sense. If it was Mark, why wouldn't he just respond? Why move instead? I felt that tension in my chest tighten a little more. "Cut it out, man," I said, trying to sound more annoyed than worried. Nothing. No movement. No footsteps. Just trees. I stood there longer than I should have, trying to decide if I should go toward it or keep heading back. Looking back, I should have just left. But at the time, it still felt explainable. Like there had to be a normal reason. So I moved toward the sound. Slowly, carefully. Every step felt louder than it should have. Branches snapping under my boots. Leaves shifting. And the deeper I went, the more that quiet came back. That unnatural kind of stillness. I stopped after maybe 50 yards. That's when I realized something else. There were no return sounds. If Mark had moved through here, I should have heard something. Anything. But there was nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. No movement at all. Just silence. And then the whistle again. This time, behind me. I turned around so fast I almost lost my footing. The sound had been close. Way too close. "Mark," I called again, but this time I knew it wasn't him. There was no response, just that same silence pressing in from every direction. At that point, I wasn't trying to figure it out anymore. I just wanted to get back to the cabin. I started moving fast, not running, but close to it. Pushing through branches, barely caring about the noise anymore. Then my radio crackled. It was sudden enough to make me flinch. "Daniel." It was Ethan. I grabbed the radio immediately. "Yeah, where are you?" There was a pause. Static. Then, "Back near the cabin. Have you seen Mark?" Something in his voice didn't sound right. Tight. Controlled. "No," I said. I thought he was with you." Another pause. "No, he never came back." I stopped walking. For a second, everything just clicked in a way I didn't like. "Listen," Ethan said, lowering his voice. "Just get back here. Now." I didn't argue. I turned and headed straight for the cabin, this time not bothering to stay quiet. I could hear my own breathing louder than anything else. My heart was pounding hard enough it was messing with my focus. And then maybe 5 minutes out, I heard it again. Not a whistle this time. A voice. "Daniel." I froze. It was Mark. No hesitation. No doubt. It was his voice, exactly the way it always sounded. Relieved, I almost answered right away. Almost. But something stopped me. It was the direction. The voice was coming from deeper in the forest, not from the direction of the cabin, not from where he should have been if he was heading back. "Daniel, over here, closer now." Urgent. That should have been enough to make me run toward him. But I didn't move, because I remembered what Ethan had just said. Mark never came back. My grip tightened on the radio. "Ethan," I whispered, barely making a sound. "I think I hear him." The response came immediately. "Don't answer." No hesitation. No confusion. Just that. "Do not answer." My stomach dropped. The voice called again. Closer. Too close. "Daniel, where the hell are you?" I took a step back. Every instinct in my body was telling me something was wrong, really wrong. And then, from somewhere off to my left, I heard it again. The same voice, same tone, same words. Daniel. Now there were two of them, one in front, one to the side, both sounding exactly like him. That's when I ran. I didn't care about direction anymore. I just moved, straight through the trees, branches hitting my arms, my face, anything to get away from that sound. Behind me, I could hear it shifting, not chasing, not crashing through the forest like an animal would, just appearing. The voice jumping from one place to another, always just far enough to follow. "Daniel, wait, Daniel." It was getting harder to tell where it was coming from. Everything blurred together. The trees, the ground, the sound. Until finally, I saw the clearing. The cabin. I didn't stop until I was inside, slamming the door behind me. Ethan was already there, rifle in hand. The second he saw me, he locked the door. "You heard it too," he said. I nodded, still trying to catch my breath. Neither of us said anything for a few seconds. Then, quietly, from somewhere just beyond the tree line, we heard it again. Daniel. Same voice, same tone. But now, it sounded like it was trying too hard. We didn't stay. Not after that. We packed everything in under 10 minutes. Didn't talk much. Didn't check anything. Just grabbed what we could carry and got out. Ethan kept his rifle on him the whole time, eyes locked on the tree line. I didn't even want to look. That voice, it didn't stop right away. Even as we moved around the cabin, throwing gear into the truck, we could still hear it faint shifting, like it was circling just beyond where we could see. It never came into the clearing. That was the part that stuck with me. It stayed just inside the trees, like it knew exactly where the line was. We got in the truck and left without looking back. Neither of us said anything during the drive out. Not until we hit the main road and finally got some signal again. That's when we tried calling Mark. Straight to voicemail. We reported him missing the next day. Search teams went out. They covered the area for days. They eventually found him, about a mile from where I first heard the voice. Ethan and I weren't there when they did, but we heard enough. They said it didn't look like an animal attack. Didn't look like anything they could easily explain. And that was it. No follow-up. No real answers. Just another unfortunate incident in a remote area. Ethan never went back. I didn't either. I sold my gear a few months later. Haven't hunted since. But sometimes, late at night, when everything's quiet, I still think about that place. About how familiar it all felt. How normal it was, right up until it wasn't. And the thing that bothers me the most isn't what happened to Mark. It's this: whatever was out there, it didn't just follow us while we were hunting. It was watching, learning. And the last thing I remember hearing before we drove away was my own voice, calling out from somewhere inside the trees. Story 2. I've hunted in a lot of different places over the years, but the story I'm about to tell you happened the first time I ever went completely alone. No friends, no radio contact, nothing. Just me, my gear, and a stretch of forest I wasn't as familiar with as I should have been. At the time, I didn't think it mattered. I'd been hunting for years, and I figured I could handle myself just fine. Looking back, going out there alone was probably the worst decision I made that entire year. I was 29, and I'd taken a few days off work to clear my head. Life had been getting loud. Too many people, too much noise. So I wanted something quiet. I found a public hunting area about 2 hours out, not too popular, which was exactly what I was looking for. I got there early in the morning, parked off a dirt road, and hiked in with my pack. The deeper I went, the less I saw any signs of other people. No footprints, no trash, nothing. It felt untouched, which at the time felt like a good thing. I set up a small camp near a creek. Nothing fancy, just a tent and a fire ring. The plan was to stay out there for 2 nights, maybe 3, and see what I could get. The first day was uneventful. I tracked a few. Deer didn't get a clean shot, and headed back before dark. Everything felt normal. Maybe a little too quiet, but I didn't think much of it. That night, I stayed up by the fire longer than I should have. There's something about being alone in the woods that messes with your sense of time. You sit there, listening to nothing, and your brain starts filling in the gaps. Around midnight, I finally put the fire out and went into the tent. I remember lying there staring at the ceiling, listening to the creek nearby. It was steady, predictable. That kind of sound usually helps you sleep. But after a while, I started noticing something else mixed in with it. At first, I thought it was just the water shifting, but the more I listened, the more it sounded like footsteps. Slow, uneven, moving through shallow water. I sat up, holding my breath, trying to listen more carefully. It stopped. Just like that. No fading out. No transition. Just gone. I told myself it was probably an animal crossing the creek. That made the most sense. I lay back down, but I didn't really sleep after that. The next morning, I went out early, following a trail that ran parallel to the creek. About half a mile in, I saw something that made me stop. There were tracks in the mud near the water. At first glance, they looked like boot prints. Human. But something about them felt off. The spacing wasn't right. Some steps were too far apart, others too close together, like whoever made them couldn't keep a consistent stride. I crouched down to get a better look. The impressions were deep, like whoever or whatever made them was heavier than a normal person. And the direction they were moving in, it followed the creek. The same path I'd heard the movement the night before. I stood there for a while, just staring at them, trying to come up with a reasonable explanation. Maybe someone else was camping nearby. Maybe they came through during the night. That was possible. Still didn't explain the way the tracks looked. I decided to follow them. Not far, just enough to see where they led. The ground got harder as I moved away from the creek, and the prints started to fade. Eventually, I lost them completely. That should have been the end of it. I should have just gone back, packed up, and left. But I didn't. I kept hunting. Around midday, I found one of my markers, a small strip of orange tape I'd tied to a branch to mark my route back. Except, it wasn't where I left it. It was lower, almost at eye level, and tied differently. I know that sounds small, but when you spend enough time out there, you remember exactly how you leave things. I didn't tie it like that. I stood there staring at it, feeling that same tightness in my chest from the night before. That quiet feeling again. Like the forest was holding its breath. I looked around expecting to see someone. Nothing. No movement. No sound. I took the tape down and put it in my pocket. That's when I heard it. A splash. Back toward the creek. Not loud, just enough to be noticeable. I turned slowly, scanning the trees. "Hello," I called out. No response. Just the sound of the water moving again, steady like before. I didn't go toward it this time. I started heading back to camp. Faster than I had before. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see something behind me, but there was never anything there. When I got back, everything looked the same. Tent untouched. Gear where I left it. But something didn't feel right. I checked my pack. Everything was there, except one thing. My knife. It was gone. I tore through the bag again, thinking I'd just misplaced it. Nothing. That's when I knew I wasn't alone out there. I didn't wait. I packed everything as fast as I could. My hands were shaking more than I wanted to admit. I didn't care about being quiet anymore. I just wanted to get back to the truck. As I started hiking out, I heard it again. That same sound from the night before. Footsteps. This time, not in the water. On the ground behind me. I turned around. Nothing. But the second I started moving again, it followed. Not fast. Not chasing. Just matching me. Step for step. I sped up. It sped up. I stopped. It stopped. That's when I ran. I didn't think about direction or noise. I just ran straight toward where I knew the road should be. Branches hit my arms, my face. I almost tripped more than once, but I didn't stop. I could still hear it behind me. Closer now. Heavy steps. Wrong rhythm. Like it was trying to copy how I moved, but couldn't quite get it right. I broke out of the tree line and saw the road. My truck was still there. I ran straight to it, yanked the door open and got inside. Locked it immediately. For a few seconds, I just sat there, breathing hard, trying to calm down. Then I looked up. At the edge of the trees, something was standing there. I couldn't see it clearly, just a shape. Too still to be an animal, too tall to feel right. And then, it took a step forward. Just one. Enough for me to see its outline shift. That was all I needed. I started the truck and got out of there as fast as I could. I didn't stop driving until I hit the highway. I never went back to that area again, and I never found my knife. But sometimes I think about those tracks, the way they followed the creek, the way they followed me. And the part that sticks with me the most is how they changed. Because by the time I got to the road, they didn't sound uneven anymore. They sounded almost exactly like my own footsteps. Story 3. The third time something happened to me out there, I wasn't even supposed to be hunting. It was late season, and most people had already packed it in for the year. I only went because a friend of mine, Jason, said he'd spotted signs of a large buck deeper in a section of forest that didn't get much traffic. We'd hunted together a few times before. He wasn't reckless, but he liked going off trail more than I did. That day, I decided to follow him. There were 3 of us this time, me, Jason, and a guy named Luke. We started early just after sunrise and hiked in for almost 2 hours before Jason stopped and said this was the area. Right away, I noticed how different it felt. The trees were thicker, older. The ground was uneven, covered in roots and fallen branches. It didn't feel like a place people came through often. We split up like usual, staying within radio range. I moved along a ridge while Jason went lower toward a narrow valley, and Luke stayed somewhere between us. For the first couple of hours, nothing happened. No movement, no tracks, nothing worth noting. Around midday, I decided to check in. I radioed Jason first. No response. That wasn't unusual, so I tried Luke. He answered almost immediately. His voice sounded off, like he was trying to keep it steady. "You hear that?" he asked. I frowned. Hear what? There was a pause. Then quietly, "Someone's been walking behind me for the last 10 minutes. I stopped where I was. "You sure it's not Jason?" he said. "It's not him." The way he said it made my stomach drop a little. "Stay where you are," I told him. "I'll head towards you." He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "It stops when I stop." I didn't like that. "What do you mean?" "I mean it copies me," he said. "Same pace, same rhythm, but it's always just a little off." I felt that same tension creeping back in, the same feeling I'd had on other trips, like something wasn't lining up the way it should. "Just stay on the radio," I said. "I'm coming to you." I started moving faster, trying to follow the direction of his voice. The terrain made it hard to move quickly, but I pushed through it. Branches snapping, boots slipping on loose dirt. After a few minutes, Luke came back on the radio. "It's closer now." His voice was lower this time. Tight. Controlled. "How close?" I asked. "I don't know," he said, "but I can hear it breathing." I stopped for a second. "You're sure?" "Yeah," he whispered. "It's not trying to hide it anymore." I started moving again, faster now. "Keep talking to me," I said. "Don't lose." The radio cut to static. "Luke." No answer. Just that low hiss. I tried again. Nothing. I switched channels. Tried Jason. Still, nothing. That's when I heard it. Not through the radio. In the forest. Footsteps. Off to my right. I turned slowly, scanning the trees. There was nothing there, but I could hear it clearly. Moving. Matching my position. I didn't call out. I didn't move towards it. I just stood there, trying to figure out what to do. Then I heard something else. A voice, faint at first. Hey. It sounded like Luke, but wrong. Too flat. Like someone repeating something they'd just heard without understanding it. Hey, you there? I felt my chest tighten. Luke, I said louder than I meant to. Silence. Then, closer this time. You there? Same tone. Same words. But not him. Not really. I backed up slowly, keeping my eyes on the trees. This isn't funny, I said, even though I knew it wasn't him anymore. The voice didn't respond right away. Then, from somewhere further out, not funny. It repeated it, slightly delayed, like an echo that wasn't supposed to exist. That's when I realized something. It wasn't just copying movement. It was copying speech. I turned and started heading back toward where we came from. Not running yet, but fast. Focused, trying to keep my direction straight. Behind me, I could hear it shifting again. Not crashing through the forest, just repositioning, staying with me. Every now and then I'd hear it speak again. Short phrases, pieces of what Luke or I had said earlier, always slightly off, always delayed, like it was practicing. Then the radio crackled again. I grabbed it immediately. Luke. For a second there was nothing. Then I see you. It wasn't Luke. I froze. I see you, it repeated. But the voice wasn't coming from the radio anymore. It was coming from ahead of me. I looked up, through the trees, and for a split second I saw movement. Something stepping behind a trunk, just as I focused on it. Too quick to make out details, but tall, wrong proportions. That was it. I ran. I didn't care about staying quiet or keeping direction. I just ran downhill, crashing through whatever was in front of me. I could hear it behind me now, not matching anymore. Faster, closing the distance, branches snapping, heavy steps, and then multiple steps, not just one. That's what broke me, because it meant there wasn't just one of them. I didn't stop until I hit a clearing, not the one we started in, but enough space to see around me. I turned, trying to catch my breath, rifle raised. Nothing came out of the trees. No movement, no sound, just silence. A few minutes later, I found the trail back to the truck. Jason was already there, alone. "Where's Luke?" I asked. He just shook his head. Said he lost radio contact hours ago. We waited for a while, longer than we should have. But Luke never came back. Search teams were sent out the next day. They found signs of him. Broken branches, footprints. But they said the tracks got confused, like they overlapped too much to follow properly. They never found him. I don't go into dense forest anymore. Not like that. And I don't hunt with radios turned off. But even now, sometimes when I'm alone, I catch myself listening. Not for animals, not for movement, just for my own voice. Because once you've heard something try to sound like you and get close enough to almost do it right, you don't forget that. Story 4. The fourth story didn't happen to me directly. It was told to me by an older guy I met years ago at a small hunting supply store. We got to talking while I was picking up ammo, and somehow the conversation drifted into areas people avoid after dark. He didn't seem like the type to make things up. If anything, he looked like someone who didn't even want to be telling the story in the first place. He said it happened when he was in his early 40s, hunting alone in a national forest he'd been going to for decades. Same situation as most of these experienced familiar with the land confident. He told me the first sign was something small. He'd set up a temporary stand near a game trail just before dusk, planning to wait it out for a couple of hours. Nothing unusual about that. As it got darker, he started noticing movement further down the trail. Not fast, not obvious. Just enough to catch your eye if you're paying attention. He assumed it was a deer, maybe moving cautiously. He raised his rifle, got ready, but something stopped him from taking the shot. He said the movement didn't feel right. The way it paused, the way it shifted. Animals don't hesitate like that unless they sense danger. This felt more deliberate. He lowered the rifle and just watched. The shape moved again, stepping into a small patch of clearer ground. And that's when he realized it was walking on 2 legs. Not upright like a person, but not like an animal either. More like something trying to stay upright and not quite getting it right. He said it took a few uneven steps, then stopped completely facing his direction. Too far to see clearly, but close enough to know it was looking at him. He didn't move, didn't breathe, just waited. After a few seconds, it stepped back into the trees and disappeared. At that point, he told me he should have left, packed up and walked out before it got any darker. But like most hunters, he stayed. Told himself it was just his eyes playing tricks on him, that he'd seen something wrong because of the fading light. Night came fast after that. He climbed down from the stand and started heading back to where he'd set up camp. About halfway there, he noticed something else. The trail markers he'd left earlier, small pieces of reflective tape, were still there, but they were turned around, facing the opposite direction. He said he felt that moment clearly, that shift from confusion to something closer to fear. He didn't remember turning them, and there was no reason anyone else would be out there doing that. He kept moving faster now, not running, but not taking his time either. Then he heard it. Footsteps behind him. Light at first. Then, matching his pace, he stopped. The sound stopped. He started again. Same thing. That's when he knew it wasn't random. It was reacting to him. He turned around, shining his flashlight back down the trail. Nothing. Just trees and shadows. But the feeling didn't go away. He kept walking. The footsteps followed again. A little closer this time. He said he could hear the difference now. The rhythm wasn't right. Too slow in some steps, too fast in others. Like it was trying to match him, but couldn't keep it consistent. When he got back to camp, he didn't bother with anything. Didn't start a fire, didn't eat. He just grabbed what he needed and got ready to leave. That's when he heard the voice, coming from the direction of the trail. "Hey." He froze. It sounded human. Male. Calm. "You dropped something." He didn't respond, didn't move. The voice came again, slightly closer. "Hey, you hear me?" He said it sounded normal. Too normal. That's what made it worse. He stepped back slowly, never taking his eyes off the direction the voice came from. "I found your marker," it said. "Thought you might want it back." That's when he broke. He got into his truck and left without packing the rest of his gear. Drove straight out of there in the dark. He never went back for anything he left behind. Not the stand, not the supplies. Nothing. He told me the part that stayed with him wasn't the movement, or the footsteps, or even the voice. It was what the voice said. Because he had dropped one of his markers earlier that day, and he hadn't told anyone about it. He finished the story, paid for his stuff, and left. Didn't even wait for a response. I stood there for a while after he walked out, thinking about it. About how many of these stories follow the same pattern, the same kind of signs, the same kind of behavior. And the more I thought about it, the more it started to feel less like coincidence, more like something out there doesn't just watch. It studies, it adjusts, and sometimes it gets close enough to almost pass as one of us. Story 5. The last one is the reason I stopped listening to these stories altogether. It didn't come from a stranger or something I read online. It came from someone I trust, my cousin Aaron. He's not the type to exaggerate, and he doesn't scare easily. He had been hunting longer than I had, mostly in the northern part of the state, where the forest gets denser and the terrain more uneven. He told me this happened during a solo trip late in the season, when almost no one else was out there. He went in planning to stay one night, maybe two. Same routine park near an access road hike, and set up a small camp, then head out before sunrise. Everything was normal at first. He found a decent spot near a narrow ridge and set up there. The first day passed without anything unusual. No strange tracks, no odd sounds, just a quiet forest. That night, he said, the temperature dropped faster than expected. He stayed close to the fire, listening to the wind move through the trees. At some point, he heard something that didn't belong. Not loud, not obvious. Just a shift in the sound around him, like something moving where nothing should be moving. He grabbed his flashlight and scanned the tree line. Nothing. The light only reached so far, and beyond that, it was just darkness. He told himself it was an animal and went back to the fire. But he didn't relax after that. The feeling stayed. That sense that something was just outside the edge of what he could see. Eventually, he went to sleep. Sometime in the night, he woke up to a sound right outside the tent. Not footsteps, not movement. Breathing. Slow. Controlled. Too steady to be an animal just passing through. He didn't move at first. Just lay there, listening. The sound didn't change, didn't get closer or further. It just stayed there. After maybe a minute, it stopped, completely. No fading out, just silence. He waited longer, then slowly reached for his flashlight and unzipped the tent just enough to shine it out. There was nothing there, no tracks. No movement, just the trees. He didn't sleep after that. As soon as the sun came up, he packed up and decided to leave early. Something didn't feel right, and he didn't want to stay another night. As he was packing, he noticed something on the ground near his camp. Footprints. Barefoot. Human-shaped, but wrong. The toes were too long, the spacing uneven, and they circled his camp. Not once, multiple times. He said that's when he realized something had been there the entire night. Close enough to hear him. Close enough to watch him. He didn't waste any more time. He grabbed his pack and started heading back toward the road. About halfway there, he heard it. His own voice. Behind him. "You forgot something." He stopped walking. Didn't turn around. "You forgot something," it repeated. Same tone, same pacing. Exactly like him. He kept walking. Faster now. The voice followed. Not getting closer, not falling behind. Just staying with him. Turn around. He didn't. "You forgot something." It said it again. Slightly off this time, like it was starting to lose the rhythm. That's when he started running. He said he didn't even think about direction, just ran toward where he knew the road should be. The voice kept going, repeating the same phrases, mixing them, changing them slightly. "Turn around. You forgot. Come back." By the time he reached the edge of the forest, it had almost matched his voice perfectly. That was the part that stayed with him. Not the footprints, not the breathing, the voice, because it was getting better. He got to his truck, got in, and drove out without stopping. When he told me the story, he didn't try to explain it, didn't offer theories. He just said one thing that stuck with me more than anything else. Whatever it wasn't trying to scare me. I asked him what he meant. He said it was trying to get me to come back. I haven't gone back into deep forest like that since. Not alone, and not with anyone else. Because after hearing all of this, the patterns, the similarities, it starts to feel like there's something out there that doesn't just exist in one place. Something that shows up wherever it needs to. Something that watches long enough to understand how we move, how we speak, how we think. And if you stay out there long enough, eventually, it learns enough to call you back. Resorts are supposed to be places where people go to escape, to relax, to feel safe, to disconnect from everything waiting for them back home. But the woods don't work like that. You don't go out there to be comfortable. You go because you think you understand it. You think if you follow the rules, if you stay aware, if you trust your instincts, you'll be fine. Every story you just heard had something in common. Not just the setting, not just the isolation. It was the moment things stopped making sense. The moment something familiar turned just slightly wrong. A sound that didn't match. A movement that didn't follow logic. A voice that almost sounded human, but not quite. And by the time the people in those stories realized what was happening, it was already too late to understand it. Because whatever is out there doesn't need to rush. It doesn't chase the way animals do. It doesn't act the way people do. It watches, it waits, and then slowly, it adapts. So the next time you find yourself somewhere quiet, somewhere far enough away that no one can hear you, if something goes wrong, pay attention. Not just to what you see, but to what doesn't feel right. Because the most dangerous thing out there isn't something you can easily recognize. It's something that's still learning. And if it's learning, that means it hasn't finished yet. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. New stories are uploaded regularly, and if you've ever experienced something you can't explain, something that still doesn't sit right with you, you can share it. Just remember, some things are better left where you found them.